Hello and welcome to our special coverage of the G20 Summit. I am Shruti Mishra. It's the D-Day and the big moment is finally here. The world's most powerful leaders are arriving at the Grand Bharat Mandapam for day one of the summit. We can see Prime Minister Modi welcoming all delegates. Remember, the Prime Minister also held bilaterals with US President Joe Biden last night. The theme of this year's G20 Summit, which is taking place under India's presidency, is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, or One Earth, One Family, One Future. Now, ahead of the summit, President Draupadi Murmu welcomed delegates through a warm tweet, and she writes, and I quote, "This year's theme is a global roadmap for sustainable, inclusive and human-centric development. I wish the participants of G20 Summit every success in their efforts towards realizing this vision." End of quote. Well, joining me now from the main hall is my colleague Parikshit Luthra. Parikshit, over to you. What all are you seeing there?
Well, lots of diplomatic activity. World leaders have just started arriving here at the G20. The Prime Minister is welcoming them at the Bharat Mandapam. You can see the National Security Advisor, Subramaniam Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister also there. Behind me right now, you can see Harshvardhan Shringla. He is the G20 Chief Coordinator. He is taking a round of the crafts exhibition. Now, why is this area important? Well, this is showcasing products from all across the country. We launched the One District, One Product initiative a year ago, and those products from different parts of the country are being showcased. So anyone who's coming here, foreign delegates coming here, they can, for example, see Indian handicrafts being made here. They can get a taste of Indian music, Indian art, Indian products. A lot of products from the northeast part of the country, from Bihar, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu. All states are represented at this handicrafts pavilion. But speaking about the diplomatic activity, there were some serious conversations that the Prime Minister had yesterday with President Biden, and that was about reviewing the partnership and how to take things forward as far as the relationship goes. There was acknowledgement by the US President about the letter of issuance by the Ministry of Defense in India for 31 Guardian drones that will be provided by General Atomics. At the same time, the Prime Minister invited President Biden for the Quad Summit that will be held in India in January next year. Remember, there is a lot of speculation about the fact that the Quad leaders could be invited as chief guests for the Republic Day, and India is hoping that President Biden will be a chief guest too. So let's see if that happens. Well, today will be an important day. There will be a Global Biofuels Alliance that will be announced later today, and we're also looking forward to an announcement on an infrastructure deal between India, UAE, United States and Saudi Arabia. That will be important as a counter to the Belt and Road Initiative. Let me go across to our guests right now. We've got Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia joining us. Ambassador Bhatia, we just spoke to Harshvardhan Shringla, the G20 Chief Coordinator, and I asked him whether the negotiations on the communique are over. Are we near consensus yet? He said we are positive, but nothing is over till it's over. The Leaders' Summit has just begun. How difficult do you think, Ambassador Bhatia, would be when it comes to coming to a consensus on a communique?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very consequential and substantial conference. Its outcome will also be very, very important for the future of the international community. So going by these two assumptions, my answer would be that the going has been fairly tough until now, and we are now perhaps on the last stage. It may still remain somewhat tough because there is that much that diplomats and officials can do, but finally it is for the highest political leaders to take the final decisions. So the draft proposed by the officials goes to the leaders, and they will take the final call. I think I would like to project an optimistic perspective, and I would say that by the end of tomorrow lunchtime, we should hope to have a very good agreement or pact coming out of this conference.
Right. Let me also welcome Ramendra Verma, partner, Grand Thornton Bharat, who's joining us on the program. Mr. Verma, give us a sense of what you're expecting from the G20. A lot of conversation around some sort of regulatory framework on cryptocurrencies. Do you think this G20 will somehow lay the ground for a legal foundation for coordination, for enforcement mechanisms, for taxation of crypto assets and stable coins?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Cryptocurrency is something which is, it's a technology-backed currency, and it is here to stay. I think governments all over the world are realizing this, and it's in the mutual interest that all of them coordinate to have a regulatory framework around it. Please understand that each and every currency is backed by a sovereign guarantee. Cryptocurrency in the usual form of bitcoins, etc., they are not backed by any sovereign guarantee. So it is basis the valuation being done by various people who have bitcoins, but there is no sovereign guarantee, and the sovereign guarantee on a currency is the basic premise on which the government have the legitimacy and the power to implement various schemes. So in this particular case, I think all the governments, they have earlier had knee-jerk reaction in which some of them reacted adversely. But I think the technology needs to be accepted. This needs to be regulated well. It needs to be coordinated with various governments amongst themselves, so that it comes as a form of a tender in which it replaces the physical form of currency possibly, and does away various issues linked to counterfeit currencies also. So I think it is a lot of it is speculative, but I think government will converge towards having some sort of agreement amongst themselves, as well as agreeing a directional way forward for the regulation.
Right. As we speak to our guests, we're also seeing world leaders arrive. I think Rishi Sunak is here as well. And those are live visuals that we're beaming on our screens from the Bharat Mandapam, the Prime Minister receiving guests. Remember, there are at least 17 heads of state, heads of government who have arrived here. The likes of Ursula von der Leyen, Charles Michel of the European Union, Emmanuel Macron of France, Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. He has arrived a short while back. You've got Mark Rutte, the Prime Minister of Netherlands, Premier Li Qiang of China. Remember, Xi Jinping is not representative. Sergei Lavrov, the Foreign Minister of Russia. We're looking right now at pictures of the Nigerian president arriving at the Bharat Mandapam, and the Prime Minister would be greeting him in a short while. So, important conversations. The Prime Minister will address the opening session. Those remarks will be live before the leaders go into a huddle. Let me go back to Ambassador Bhatia. Ambassador Bhatia, last night when the Prime Minister had a private meeting with President Biden at the Lok Kalyan Marg, he expressed disappointment at the heads of Russia and China not attending this meeting. This came from Kurt Campbell, the coordinator for Indo-Pacific at the White House National Security Council. How significant a statement is this? And do you think somehow the Prime Minister's vision for the G20 and our presidency and the outcomes have been impacted by the absence of these two leaders, Putin and Xi Jinping?
I think we should take a very realistic and calibrated view on this. Naturally, it would have been wonderful if it had been 20 over 20. But then the past record of G20 shows that not all 20 leaders are able to attend every conference. In fact, since 2010, there has not been a single G20 summit where one or the other leader was not missing. These two leaders, President Putin and President Xi Jinping, are obviously important world figures, but they have their own compulsions, they have their own constraints, and so they are not there. And the show will go on. It is not that Russia and China are completely absent. from the summit. In fact, they are represented at the appropriate level, at the level that is considered appropriate by the top leaders. So Russia is represented today by Foreign Minister, and China is represented by the Premier. I think I can recall a very apt statement made by our own Foreign Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, who said just 3 or 4 days back that the level of the representation is not the final determinant in the position that a participating country adopts. So going by that, I think at the end of the day, there will be no substantive difference to what Russia and China do here and what is eventually the final outcome. Therefore, we should now, instead of looking to the past, look to the future. And I'm sure the leaders today, those who are present there, will focus on the task ahead.
Right, and we can also tell our viewers that the Prime Minister is greeting leaders right now, and for this welcome handshake, India is showcasing the Konark wheel from Odisha. So the Prime Minister is standing in front of that Konark wheel. This was built in the 13th century under the reign of King Narasimha Deva I. The wheel with 24 spokes is also adapted into India's national flag, embodying India's ancient wisdom, advanced civilization and architectural excellence. So those pictures that you see of the Prime Minister in front of the wheel is the Konark wheel from Odisha. And even now he continues to meet guests. The first session would begin in a short while. All of it is themed on the larger vision for the G20 Summit. One Earth, one family, one future. And this is how the 3 sessions will be divided. It'll last for about 2 to 3 hours. There will be a lot of time in between for leaders to have bilaterals, also engage with one another. Remember, G20 is a high-level networking event. Let me go back to our guest from Grand Thornton. We have Mr. Ramendra Verma, who is continuing to be with us. Mr. Verma, I'd like to ask you about the major economic deliverables, and more importantly, for India. We are trying to be an alternative to China, and perhaps that's one of the reasons why President Xi Jinping may not have wanted to come. According to the international press and also reports in the Indian media, in a way, this is a snub from China to India by not coming here, not acknowledging the fact that India is getting so much attention and India is a rising power in the region as well. We're showcasing the India stack here at the Crafts Pavilion. We're showcasing products from all across the country. What do you think G20 can do for the image of India across the world as a business destination, a place for manufacturing as well? Because what the Indian government is trying to do is hard sell brand India by showcasing all the innovation we have, all the products that we have.
So I think this G20 event is a well-timed one. If you look across, multiple accomplishments of India happening as we are into the G20 summit, and I'm talking about the last 1 and 2 years, not only about Chandrayaan. We are now the 3rd largest economy. We are having the largest number of population, youth population. So the trajectory is up. So India's definitely, this event comes at a time where India has the opportunity to showcase its strength, its power to the world, and it's aptly, timed one. Last year also, if you remember, India was at the main stage in terms of trying to get the consensus amongst the G20 member nations, and was seen as an instrumental party in accomplishing that. So India has been in that in the center stage and will continue to do so. Number 2 is India's economic prowess. Using the G20 is something which is the Department of Commerce right now. The Trade and Investment Working Group is already working, and hopefully we will have some major announcements during the day pertaining to that. And one of the foremost accomplishment will be how to give the MSMEs of the developing nations a global platform. India has been struggling in the MSME space where still it's, as per various estimates, 15 to 25% of the GDP is coming from the MSMEs. whereas in developed countries like Germany, it is 85%. So for India to arrive, it's very important that MSMEs are given due recognition and due opportunity at a global stage. And no wonder you see so many stalls put out there talking about the handicrafts and the MSME industries which are operating in India. The other areas of the developing nations pertaining to the World Trade Organization, where do the developing nations have much more representation? That's also probably an area of discussion for the G20 member countries. The developing nations have been also being
Right.
struggling with the logistics cost in the global value chain. I think that's another area which India will be the voice of the developing nations and getting that discussed in the G20 summit today and finalized by tomorrow.
All right. Okay, so let's see what the outcomes will be in all those issues. Reform of multilateral development banks, the capital adequacy framework, preparing international financial institutions for pandemics for the future is also some very important aspect of the G20 deliberations. We'd like to thank our guests, Rajiv, Bhatia and Ramendra Verma from Thornton to join us here this morning, giving us their view on the G20 deliberations. Let me also take you across and tell you about what Harshvardhan Shringla, the G20 chief coordinator, told me a short while back. I began by asking him whether we are going to have a communique or not.
Just before the summit begins, we are in a very good position. And I think everybody is very confident that we will have a wonderful, impeccably unique summit.
Right. What is planned for today? Right now, we have the Prime Minister receiving the foreign delegates, the world leaders arriving at the Bharat Mandapam. What's going to happen through the course of the day? Any big ticket announcements?
So you have seen that today involves two different sessions. It's one Earth and one family. So two of the initial sessions will be held today, where leaders will discuss matters that are of global importance, and the G20 will deliberate on some of the outcomes that we are looking forward to. And of course, you will also have some side events which were also announced yesterday in terms of the Global Biofuel Allowance and the PGI and other initiatives. So I think it will be a very, very full day, lots of activities and a lot of time for deliberations at the highest levels.
Right. And what are we showcasing to the world by showing the India Stack, the craft exhibition, the country exhibition?
So we are right here at the Sikkim stall, and you can see that there's some wonderful products in Sikkim, including Temi tea. Of course, I'm from Darjeeling, and Darjeeling tea is also very famous. But Temi tea has very good reputation, and they are exhibiting products which are, of both sustainable, which is part of our, priorities in the G20, and products that are organic. It is the first state to go organic in India. So you will see that there are 30 states and union territories represented in the Crafts Bazaar, but it is also a demonstration of high technology, not just our fine artisan and craftswork with high technology. Okay. At the entrance, you will have seen that these are some wonderful paintings which are the mandala and the Buddhist art, and I think this is really what Sikkim is famous for.
Okay.
But you will have seen that there is an innovation hub with the RBI. And the central bank digital currency is being introduced for the first time. It's a pilot project. And those international delegates and media representatives will be here who don't have bank accounts, will still be able to get a mobile wallet, will still be able to buy products right from here. Right. And you will see the QR code, which is right here. So they have a QR code, they can purchase products, and already you can see international delegates are buying things. So I'm sure Sikkim stall will be sold out.
So one final question, are the negotiations over on the document, on the communique or not?
Nothing is over till it's over. And the summit is just beginning.
Okay.
Well, that was Harshvardhan Shringla, Chief Coordinator of G20, giving us a sense of what's more in the pipeline. We'll slip into a short break and we will continue our in-depth coverage of the G20 Summit on the other side. We will also be joined by Sumant, the founder, chairman and CEO of Renew. Stay tuned, there's lots more coming up.
Welcome back. You're watching our special G20 broadcast from the Bharat Mandapam. We're joining you from the Crafts Pavilion here at ITPO, the Pragati Maidan. Behind me is the goddess Durga statue. This is from Odisha. It's been made from wood. You might be seeing a lot of pictures of the Nagraj statue, the 24-foot Nagraj statue at the Bharat Mandapam. We can't access that. That's known to be very beautiful and one of the key attractions here. But there's actually a lot for foreign leaders and media delegates and delegates from different countries to visit and witness and just understand what Indian culture stands for, what are the kind of products that come from different parts of the country. And just behind me is the RBI Pavilion as well. But without wasting any more time, let me go across to Sumant Sinha of Renew Power. Sumant Sinha, thank you very much for joining us at this point. Let me begin by asking you about the Global Biofuel Alliance. This is going to be announced this evening at around 5 p.m. What will be the importance of this alliance according to you?
I think, first of all, to take that into context, the reality is that as a globe, we're just simply not doing enough on climate change. I think that is very clear. Today, the UNFCCC Global Stocktake report also came out, and that also shows that the world is just simply not moving at the pace that it was intended at the Paris Climate Accords. So much more needs to be done. Now, in doing much more, we have to really pursue each and every possibility that we have. Biofuels is actually a very good way for us to generate renewable energy, which can be used in a number of different applications, including mobility, including certain kinds of shipping fuel, and so on. So I think it's very important for us to make sure that we put enough focus and emphasis behind it to make sure that we are able to essentially get more biofuels into the system and are able to develop user industries that are then able to absorb all that biofuel. So I think a lot of effort needs to be put into that to make sure that, again, we move more and more towards renewable energy as we go forward. So getting that kind of alliance together, I think, is very important.
Okay, and the Prime Minister in his blog, Sumant, had also spoken about how a global ecosystem for green hydrogen would emerge out of this G20 meeting. How do you see that coming about? Because we've had a green hydrogen program, a major green hydrogen mission worth 19,000 crore rupees. That's being rolled out currently. So what kind of G20 green hydrogen system are we looking at from this summit?
Well, again, very important, Parikshit, to look at fundamentally why we need green hydrogen in the system. Today, the world makes about 100 million tons of hydrogen from gray sources, which is highly polluting, right? And this hydrogen is used as a feedstock into industries like refineries, fertilizers, and so on. And that has to be changed because we cannot continue to emit methane that is formed by making this hydrogen into the atmosphere. It's extremely polluting. The second thing is that there are a number of areas where we can actually substitute fuel with hydrogen as a fuel or use derivatives of hydrogen, things like methanol, which can be used in the shipping industry, and then sustainable aviation fuel based on green hydrogen. So green hydrogen essentially is a very critical element in the whole world's decarbonization journey. It's absolutely critical. It's a new developing area. And in that, every country right now has its own thoughts about how to define what is green hydrogen, what kind of mandates to have for it, and how to trade it across the world. So putting together a green hydrogen alliance and having common definitions of what green hydrogen is, encouraging it to come up everywhere across the world is very important. And I think recognizing that, the Prime Minister set a very ambitious target for India to get up to about 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030. And that is why the National Green Hydrogen Mission has been brought about, investing about $2.5 billion over this time period. Now, other countries are actually doing quite a lot as well. And I think it's important for the world to come together, make sure that all of these common elements of what constitutes green hydrogen, how to trade it, and so on, is defined well, so that we have the ability of creating a new asset class, a new tradable asset class, which can then allow us to move away from fossil fuels, oil and gas, and so on, and more towards green fuels. Keep in mind that green hydrogen is made using renewable electricity. That's the core of what it is, and therefore it is clean. And that is why it's important for the world to come together to really encourage green hydrogen in a much bigger way. And I'm really glad that India is taking a lead in that whole effort.
Right. Right. Sumant Sinha, stay with us. We just want to recap for our viewers the leaders who have arrived at Bharat Mandapam so far. Prime Minister of Netherlands, Mark Rutte, Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Spanish Deputy Prime Minister Nadia Calvino, UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Hsien Loong. You also have Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez. They've all arrived here. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen is also there. Many important conversations taking place. And let me return to Sumant Sinha, Founder, Chairman and CEO of Renew. Sumant, I'd like to ask you about the 50-minute bilateral that happened between India and the United States yesterday. There was also a fund that is going to be set up by both countries for renewable energy and renewable infrastructure as well. What, according to you, were some of the big takeaways from that meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden? What are the next big things that you see the two countries doing together in the field of climate action, energy transition as well?
Well, it's absolutely critical for India and the US to cooperate and work very closely with each other in the area of climate change, because we are two of the three largest emitters of carbon in the world. And of course, as you know, as India grows, we will continue to emit more carbon into the atmosphere. And so therefore, we have to follow a path that is less carbon intensive. And I think that's the direction that the Prime Minister has put us on. Now, technologies are absolutely essential in that. Financing is absolutely essential. And both of those are things that the US does have. And therefore, it's very important for us to make sure that we get the best in terms of technology, whether it's for green hydrogen, whether it's for biofuels, whether it's for other areas, and make sure that we are able to incorporate those at a very early stage in India. Now, the financing agreement that has been signed between the US DFC, Development Finance Corporation, and NIIF envisages $500 million from each of the two institutions coming together in $1 billion to finance infrastructure, climate change infrastructure in the country. And I think that's obviously very important. I think what is going to be very important also is how that money is used. I think just providing loans or equity into projects, I think there's a lot of private capital that is coming in. I think that capital has to be used in a way to catalyze more private investment in the renewable energy sector in the country, or to go into areas where it is harder to get private capital to come in. So I think that's how that capital has to be used. Really should be looked at from a risk capital standpoint. So I think that is very important. The second thing is supply chains, very critical. Today, the world supply chains in renewables are really focused or really concentrated in China. It is important for both the US and India to make sure that these supply chains are diversified into India and into the US. And between India and the US, there is a strong trade that develops in the supply chain side. So I think those are the two areas that I think we really need to work closely with each other and make sure that this partnership develops even more.
All right, Sumant Sinha, I'm going to request you to stay with us. We're taking a short break, but we tell all our viewers there's lots coming up from the Bharat Mandapam. As we go into a break, take a look at this report by my colleague Abhimanyu Sharma. He had visited the Crafts Pavilion, and he's someone who tracks the One District, One Product initiative very closely, and he gets you this report.
India's civilizational heritage and soft power is at full display at the G20 Summit in Delhi. We are currently standing at the Crafts Bazaar where live craft is being displayed by artisans from across the country. Also, there are geographical indicator tag items as well as One District, One Product items which have been displayed state-wise at the Crafts Bazaar, which is open for all G20 delegates. Usually, ODOP products and GI tag products are given as gifts to international delegates, but out here they are also available for sale in a bid to enhance their market potential. Also, India's technological development, socio-economic progress and a growing space economy have been highlighted, and India plans to provide several kits and motifs as part of the kit which is given to all delegates from across the world in order to promote Indian culture and artisans. We can see out here there are live demonstrations from several artisans from various states and there are several crafts which are also available for sale to the delegates, and this is going to continue till the last day of the G20 summit in Delhi.
All right, welcome. We are joining you from the Bharat Mandapam, and right now I'm at the RBI Pavilion here in Bharat Mandapam. Remember, there is a country pavilion which showcases products and artifacts from different countries, their art as well. There's a crafts exhibition, and there is an RBI Pavilion which is showing our frictionless credit schemes, our UPI. All of this is being showcased here. You've got officials from the RBI also there to explain delegates the kind of work we're doing. There is a stall here showcasing India's central bank digital currencies as well. There are RBI officials from different banks in India. So there is an attempt to showcase the India stack to the world. We will be through the day showcasing what's happening here. There's a digital immersive experience where the Ministry of Electronics and IT has also put up a stall showing the digital innovation we're doing in India. And we are trying to put financial inclusion very strongly in the communique as well. Leaders continue to arrive here at the G20 Summit, and we have also seen Giorgia Meloni of Italy. We're now seeing the Prime Minister of the President of Turkey arrive here as well. He's meeting the Prime Minister right now in front of the Konark Wheel. We're waiting for President Biden to arrive. Sergei Lavrov, Premier Li Qiang of China, Rishi Sunak. I can see him right now walking on the aisle. This is inside the Bharat Mandapam, which is about 500 meters away from where I am standing. So leaders from Egypt, leaders from Canada, leaders from the European Union, they have already arrived at the venue. Leaders from Saudi Arabia as well. Sumant Sinha continues to be with us. Sumant Sinha, what do you think we are able to do, or what will be the larger deliverables from the G20? If you were to be asked about 3 key achievements that you would be looking out for, what would those be?
Well, Parikshit, first of all, it's terrific to see India really, at this point on the global world stage. I think it's terrific to see the leadership that India is taking, and all the world leaders coming in and being received so warmly and in such a nice manner by the Prime Minister and the government. So I think that itself, first of all, I think is a win for India, because I think it does position India as a leader on the world stage, and I think enhances our voice. So I think number one, I'd like to see India really emerge as a voice of the global South, and really take on that position. To give you a quick example, for instance, India is developing a carbon light growth path, which I think can be a beacon for the rest of the global South. And then, of course, there are many other ways. The India stack, for example, can also become a huge benefit to other countries as well. So I think there are ways in which India can really propel and its soft power. So I think this is something that is very important. The second thing is, certainly, given my background in climate change, I certainly would like to see a much stronger push from G20 on climate change issues. I think there has been a lot of debate about whether there should be a phase down or phase out of whether it should be coal or whether it should be all fossil fuels. India has been pushing for stronger language and including all fossil fuels. That has been resisted by certain countries, including Saudi and China and so on. So let's see whether there's a consensus on that. Perhaps that then leads to a more stronger effort, multilateral effort after this. The other thing I'd be looking for is a much stronger effort around multilateral development bank lending and providing capital into the climate change space, because ultimately multilateral banks have a very important role to play, which they have not actually been doing over the last 10, 12 years in climate change. So we need, the report that Mr. N.K. Singh is presenting along with Larry Summers. How is that implemented? I think that is going to be very key as well, to catalyze more private capital to go into the climate change space, which needs trillions of dollars. So I think that is very important. And then, of course, as we discussed earlier, things around the Global Biofuels Alliance, the green hydrogen conversations that need to move forward faster. So I think all of those are very important areas. I won't comment on political issues. I won't comment on broader economic matters, because those are other areas. But I just think that on climate change itself, there is a very significant agenda that India can push in the G20, and really leading into COP28 and in Dubai. This can really become a big springboard in that direction. So I think very important from that standpoint. But I think, again, to de-emphasize, just highlighting India's position in the world and really taking it forward, I think for me, that's one of the biggest wins of this G20.
All right. Sumant Sinha, we'll come back to you for one final question to sum up the G20 as you see it. We have with us 2 senior RBI officials, and as I told you earlier, we're at the RBI pavilion right now. We have Mr. Vivek Deep and Ajay Chaudhary, who are going to be telling us about the digital payment and frictionless credit push of the RBI and what we're showcasing here. Mr. Vivek Deep, give us a sense of what you're trying to show to foreign delegates, the international media, as to what we're doing in terms of digital innovation in payments.
Right. So, as you know, there are a number of initiatives we have taken in the recent times as far as the payment system is concerned. So we had, a number of options that we could showcase to the foreign delegates. They were coming here. But of those options which are available, we thought UPI, since it has made a lot of name in the foreign shores, so that we are trying to showcase, and we are in fact going one step further and trying to give a UPI experience to the foreign delegates by enabling them to have the UPI on their link to their foreign numbers, mobile numbers, and so that they can move around during this in this campus and outside also, and use that wallet to transact. Right. Apart from that, 2 other innovative options. One is using their wallet on a wearable device, and the other is a Bharat bill payment system experience, where even NRIs sitting abroad can make payment for bills and utilities in India.
Right.
So that we are trying to show.
Is that the stall where international media and delegates can come?
That stall is on is on the other side.
Okay.
This will be for the CBDC and things like that.
All right, sir. Could you tell us a bit about this, sir? Mr. Ajay Chaudhary.
Yeah, this is what Vivek has just mentioned about a payment system. Here is a digital currency. This is a legal tender for INR in rupee, and we have started the pilot actually in December 2021 for the retail, for the central bank digital currency. Here we are demonstrating how it can be used actually with the merchant and peer-to-peer transfer, as also we are trying to give similar wallet what UPI we are trying to give, just to have hands-on experience with some preloaded CBDC, and they can use it in any of the stalls here. So this is the CBDC position here.
Right. I'd just like to ask you, in terms of cooperation with international banks, cooperation on financial inclusion, what are we looking to achieve at this G20? We're showcasing our innovation here, but what can this G20 do, and what can India presidency offer to the world and other countries and developing nations?
No, multiple things actually on our platter. One is definitely we want to showcase our DPI, digital public infrastructure, and application built on that, and basically people can leverage on this, and that most of the different, particularly Global South, is very keen on that, looking at this. As also we are trying to have some narrative on private currency, what we mean, crypto, etc. So that also some consensus is arriving that possibly we can have some sort of a arrangement where basically we can handle the risk relating to that. Plus actually how we can cooperate relating to the big tech and fintech issues across the globe. So these are the few major things actually we are looking at for the cooperation across the globe.
Yeah.
Anything from your side?
Hopefully we will have some consensus on the cryptocurrency framework. The Financial Stability Board, the IMF, they've all come out with a synthesis paper.
Yeah, I mean, Ajay mentioned some of the key areas in which we can have cooperation.
Yeah.
One more thing that I wanted to add was the cross-border payment, because that is it's a G20 priority area, and India has shown by interlinking its fast payment system with Singapore, that is one way in which cross-border payments can be made much more efficient and smooth for the common public. And the financial world across all over the world is very enthused about this particular kind of architecture, where fast payment systems of the countries can talk to each other, and international payments can move to a different architecture than what is existing today. So
Right.
that is another area.
And we are also trying to take UPI to different parts of the world, trying to have collaborations with many countries. Give us a sense of the number of nations we're having a conversation with.
That question keeps on coming quite often actually. So on that, our Deputy Governor also had spoken a few days earlier. The conversation is going on with a number of countries, but and it is at different stages. It is 2 or 3 models that we are talking about. In some cases, we are talking about linking the fast payment system of the 2 countries. For example, UPI here and Pay Now in Singapore, so we have linked that. The other model is that using UPI, you can scan the QR code in some other countries. The person from India goes there, and the person coming from that country to India can use the QR code and make payment. Right. The third option is that the UPI-like infrastructure can be built in that country. So all these three options are being mooted. The talks are at various stages with different countries, since the agreements are not yet finalized. It will possibly not be proper for me to give out the names at this stage, but whenever the agreements are finalized, we announce it on our website, and it comes in the public.
All right, sir, if we can quickly show our viewers also what's happening with frictionless credit. What are we trying to showcase?
Come here inside. This is something possibly we are looking at frictionless credit. What we are talking about the frictionless, what we mean by this, that the information actually which are residing at multiple locations. Lenders are finding it difficult and sometimes complex and costly to fetch them and provide the lending to borrowers. So many times it takes 2 to 4 weeks for providing the lending. Here actually this platform enables the seamless flow of information from all sources to lenders through plug and play model, and accordingly it can move to lenders and they can decide within a few minutes. You can't believe it, but in case of MSME, for this cattle financing and the KCC financing, the lending is done within less than 10 minutes. So this is the transformational thing. What we say, Governor has said, is a transformational thing actually for the next 1 year, and possibly it's a UPI movement for the lending.
All right, so thank you very much for speaking to us, Mr. Ajay Chaudhary, and we'd like to thank Mr. Vivek Deep as well. So we're showcasing you all the innovations here, the digital Kisan credit, the digital cattle loan, frictionless credit that we're showcasing to countries of the global south, and also leading powers in the G20 as to what India can do when it comes to financial inclusion. Let me go across to Sumant Sinha for one final question. Sumant Sinha, the Prime Minister has spoken about the need to raise the ambition on climate finance and transfer of technology to developing countries. And he's saying that we cannot have a restrictive attitude. We need to be generous in our climate financing goals, in our energy and technology transfer goals as well. So what, according to you, would be the roadmap that the G20 should come up with so that we have an orderly and just energy transition?
That's a terrific question, Parikshit. And look, the Prime Minister is absolutely right. I think he's very savvy when it comes to climate change issues. I think he recognizes how important climate change is, especially for vulnerable countries like India. And he's trying to galvanize global support towards moving faster behind this whole issue. Now, I don't know, frankly, how much the G20 can do, except on really making sure that the multilateral bank financing issue gets addressed as much as possible. And number two, that every country agrees to move forward much faster than it is right now. So I think those are the two things that we have to try to move forward. And in some ways create moral pressure on countries, because the architecture that the multilateral or the world has agreed to is really that countries are going to move forward on a voluntary basis. There is going to be no overarching architecture that says that there are targets for every country and which are binding, and that every country therefore has to move forward at that pace. And so therefore we have to move everybody forward gradually by creating moral pressure, by pointing out all the climate calamities that are happening, including, for example, warming of the oceans, which are really a climate sink, as it were. And those are things that are causing fundamental damage now. You look at monsoon patterns, for example, in India, which are getting disrupted, which impacts, almost 1.4 billion people in the country. So I think what we really require from this G20 is, as the Prime Minister is going to discuss around, in the One Earth theme, which is happening today, the whole issue of climate change and how countries need to do a lot more. They need to open their purse strings. The long-promised climate financing that was supposed to come from the developed world to the developing world has still not showed up. Let's at least reform the multilaterals to make some of that happen. Now, technology transfer is a little bit harder because most technology is developed by private companies and therefore is commercial in nature. You can't just ask governments to transfer it that easily. And then, as I said, thirdly, let countries have much more ambition around their own climate targets. So I think if the Prime Minister can move G20 countries in that direction and really put in very strong language in the final communique around some of these issues, I think that will create a lot more moral pressure on the world as a whole to move faster in this area. So I think that's what I'd be really keen to see happening. And the Prime Minister certainly seems seized of this issue quite well.
Right. One more question, if I were to ask you about the infrastructure deal that was discussed between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden yesterday. This was a railway and port deal being discussed between Saudi Arabia, UAE, US and India. How significant this infrastructure deal would be, according to you, and how would it be a counter to the Belt and Road Initiative of China, the importance of this deal for all our economies put together for a shared future?
Yeah, Parikshit, I haven't seen the details, of course, of that deal because it is very recent. But I can tell you one thing, that connectivity with places like the UAE and Saudi Arabia can be very important. Certainly in terms of electricity, because, they are countries that have sun at a time when India's evening peak is coming up. So if we can actually create better connectivity on the transmission infrastructure side, then we can actually have a situation where you can have electricity moving from India to those countries and vice versa to really take advantage of the movement of the sun. And that really is a core theme, if you recall, of the Prime Minister's One World, One Sun, One Grid initiative as well. So I think it can really move us forward in that direction. Now, maybe the US can help, again, with technology and with financing to make some of those connectivities happen. Obviously having better port infrastructure and creating shipping lanes will again be really good for trade, multilateral and bilateral trade between all of these countries. So I think it's pointing in that direction. I think on the railway side, I'm not clear. Perhaps it is really meant to get more high-speed, technology, high-speed train technology into countries like India. But again, I haven't seen the fine print and the details on that, so hard for me to comment.
All right. Thank you very much, Sumant Sinha, for joining us, sharing your perspective on the big G20 meeting, which is now truly underway in the national capital. All eyes, the international media, and let me tell you, there are at least 3,000 journalists from all around the world here, and everyone is looking out for big headlines. Everyone wants to see whether there will be a communique or not. Thanks once again, Sumant Sinha. Let me also come back to the RBI pavilion here, because there is a lot of talk about the India stack, about UPI. Give us a sense of what you're showcasing here. If there is a foreign delegate who comes here who does not have an Indian bank account, how do they make payments for buying something inside the crafts exhibition?
Yeah. I think we have two options. The first one is where people can actually get UPI onboarded on UPI, and we are giving some money will be loaded onto the wallet, and they can start using it at the pavilions. We also have the digital rupee, where people can actually load money, and they also get, once they're onboarded, we have removed the frictions for onboarding for foreigners, and they can actually, the money will be credited into their account, and they can start using that.
What are you showcasing here?
So these are our tap and pay options which we are getting launched. So this is for our RuPay on the go, which is running on our national payment rails, RuPay. And this is for the UPI tap and pay option, which we are recently launched. So user will get a new option in UPI apps where they can just do tap and pay, and all the transactions which is below 500 rupees, they can just complete the transaction with just a tap and pay being there. So I'll just show you that also. Just a second. It's happening.
All right, we do get a sense of it that people have different options to make payments and witness the kind of UPI options that we have. But let me also tell our viewers right now, news coming in, Joe Biden has arrived at the Bharat Mandapam. You will see him shaking hands with the Prime Minister, and he would be heading into the Bharat Mandapam for negotiations. And very soon, the negotiations, that is the first session, will kick off. We are going to see discussions on debt restructuring for vulnerable countries. Hopefully, there will be some clarity, some conclusion for debt restructuring issues related to Zambia, Ghana, and Ethiopia as well. We're looking at conversations on sustainable development goals, and the UN Secretary General said yesterday that we are really badly off track when it comes to sustainable development goals, and there's a need to accelerate them. Increased climate financing is something that the Prime Minister is pushing for. You will see a discussion on multilateral development bank reform, how to prepare them for future pandemics as well, cryptocurrency regulations, all of that will be discussed. Whether the African Union will be included into the G20 as a permanent member. India made a push for that. Let's see whether that reaches a conclusion sometime today. Later, you will see an announcement on the Global Biofuel Alliance as well. Negotiations are not over on the communique, as Harshvardhan Shringla, the G20 chief coordinator, told me a short while back. Nothing is over till it's over. The Leaders Summit has just begun. So let's see what happens. For the moment, as these visuals of President Biden and other world leaders at Bharat Mandapam continue to be beamed on our screens, let's also listen in to world leaders, including Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary of the United States.
I believe the G20 has been extremely effective, and especially under India's leadership, our goals for the G20 have coincided closely with those of India. we've tackled very important challenges.
Well, we just spoke to a lot of people taking us through some of the G20 deliberations. In fact, US President Joe Biden has also arrived at the G20 Summit. With that, we'll slip into a short break and we will continue our in-depth coverage of the G20 Summit on the other side. Stay tuned. Of the G20 Summit. Let's get you an interesting conversation. My colleague Shivani Bazaz caught up with Abhishek Singh, Managing Director and CEO of Digital India Corporation, and asked him on the country's digital transformation and more. Listen into that conversation.
See, India is well known for its digital transformation projects. The whole world looks up at India that we have implemented some of these projects at real population scale, whether it's Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, CoWIN, everywhere. So when the whole world is coming to India for the G20, we wanted to showcase this to the entire world, to the delegates, to the country representatives, to the media, and let them have an immersive experience. Let them experience these projects in such a way that they will not only get to know what these projects are, but they will be interested in trying to see how they can replicate these projects in their own countries. So for that, we have curated this exhibition in such a way that they're not just seeing, they're actually experiencing, whether scanning a QR code or whether looking at Bhashini or having a metaverse experience of Digital India projects, or whether doing a real-time telemedicine consultation with a doctor, or whether looking at a Diksha textbook or looking at how ONDC works. So that has been the whole idea of letting people know how these projects work and making them believe that yes, they can be replicated in their own countries. So that's the whole intent about this project.
So I believe there are two of such experience centers. One is here and one is in Hall 14, right? So you are, as you said, showcasing this to the international media, the guests, the delegates, everybody. What is here in all of these, like Bhashini, the ONDC, everything? What are the things that Indians can use? What are the things for citizens, people who are not the citizens of India?
See, these projects are all for all Indians can use any time. But especially for the foreign delegates, we have curated a few interesting things. Like, for example, the Bhashini project involves real-time translations, real-time conversations in Indian languages. But what we also did was that for the purpose of G20, we built in a functionality wherein we integrated all the G20 languages, whether it's Spanish, French, Russian, Italian, Japanese, Indonesian, Mandarin. So all these languages have been integrated here, and there is a functionality on the G20 app when it allows you to converse in your own language and the other person will hear in his own language. So a Spanish speaking person can talk to a Hindi speaking person, or a French speaking person can talk to a Mandarin speaking person. So that functionality has been built in for the G20 delegates. Similarly, there is another tool that we have built in wherein you can ask questions in your language about G20 and get answers in your own language about that, the Jugalbandi interface that we have built in. Plus, for the UPI, like Indians know what UPI is, we use it all the time. But foreign delegates may not be able to use UPI because they don't have an Indian bank account, an Indian number. So for them, what we have done is that we have given them dummy phones, Indian phones, with which they can scan a QR code and buy a product from the vending machine, or they can, there are two phones with which they can transfer 1 rupee or 10 rupees, and just to experience how it works. So we have customized a lot of our solutions for giving them a real-time experience of the projects that we have implemented.
Okay. So last question, what do you aim from all of this? Do you think that all of this, as you said, is also a way of telling people, telling the world what we have done and what they can learn from it, right? So what is the main aim, main goal? The G20 delegates, the heads of states, all important people here in the room in a couple of days. So what are you looking at? What are your expectations?
See, digital public infrastructure has been an important vertical under the Digital Economy Working Group. And one of the decisions that the Digital Economy Working Group in G20 has come to is to build up a global DPI repository, a global repository of such digital transformation solutions which the whole world can adopt. So India, being a pioneer in this field, we are one of the key contributors to the global DPI repository. So our projects are available for the entire world to adopt. And a lot of countries have already shown interest in this. 6 countries have signed MOUs, other countries are looking at it. So what we feel is that this will lead to replication of some of these projects in multiple countries, and then that happens, it will create an opportunity for Indian IT companies to implement those projects. It will create opportunities for creating jobs for Indian youth, and ultimately it will help us in spreading the Indian ethos and Indian way of implementation of projects entire world. So it makes a big thing when it comes to spreading the Indian influence across the world is concerned.
All right, moving on. CNBC-TV18's Parikshit Luthra also spoke to Harshvardhan Shringla, the chief coordinator of G20. Let's revisit that conversation.
Just before the summit begins, we are in a very good position. And I think everybody is very confident that we will have a wonderful, impeccably unique summit.
Right. What is planned for today? Right now, we have the Prime Minister receiving the foreign delegates, the world leaders arriving at the Bharat Mandapam. What's going to happen through the course of the day? Any big ticket announcements?
So you have seen that today involves 2 different sessions. It's one Earth and one family. So 2 of the initial sessions will be held today, where leaders will discuss matters that are of global importance, and the G20 will deliberate on some of the outcomes that we are looking forward to. And of course, you will also have some side events which were also announced yesterday in terms of the Global Biofuel Allowance and the PGI and other initiatives. So I think it will be a very, very full day. Lots of activities and a lot of time for deliberations at the highest levels.
Right. And what are we showcasing to the world by showing the India Stack, the craft exhibition, the country exhibition?
So we are right here at the Sikkim stall, and you can see that there's some wonderful products in Sikkim, including Temi tea. Of course, I'm from Darjeeling, and Darjeeling tea is also very famous. But Temi tea has very good reputation, and they are exhibiting products which are, of both sustainable, which is part of our, priorities in the G20, and products that are organic. It is the first state to go organic in India. So you will see that there are 30 states and union territories represented in the Crafts Bazaar, but it is also a demonstration of high technology, not just our fine artisan and craftswork with high technology. Okay. At the entrance, you will have seen that these are some wonderful paintings, which are the mandala and the Buddhist art, and I think this is really what Sikkim is famous for.
Okay.
But you will have seen that there is an innovation hub with the RBI. And the central bank digital currency is being introduced for the first time. It's a pilot project. And those international delegates and media representatives will be here who don't have bank accounts, will still be able to get a mobile wallet, will still be able to buy products right from here. Right. And you will see the QR code, which is right here. So they have a QR code, they can purchase products. And already you can see international delegates are buying things. So I'm sure Sikkim stall will be sold out.
So one final question, are the negotiations over on the document, on the communique or not?
Nothing is over till it's over. And the summit is just beginning.
Okay.
With that, we'll slip into a short break and we will continue our in-depth coverage of the G20 Summit on the other side. Stay tuned.
भूकंप से प्रभावित लोगों के प्रति मैं अपनी हार्दिक संवेदना प्रकट करना चाहता हूं। हम प्रार्थना करते हैं कि सभी इंजर्ड लोग शीघ्र स्वस्थ हो। इस कठिन समय में पूरा विश्व समुदाय मोरक्को के साथ है और हम उन्हें हर संभव सहायता पहुंचाने के लिए तैयार हैं। Your Highnesses, Excellencies, G20 के प्रेसिडेंट के तौर पर भारत आप सभी का हार्दिक स्वागत करता है। इस समय जिस स्थान पर हम एकत्रित हैं, यहां से कुछ ही किलोमीटर के फासले पर लगभग 2500 साल पुराना एक स्तंभ लगा हुआ है। इस स्तंभ पर प्राकृत भाषा में लिखा है, हेवम लोकसा हित मुखेति अथ इयम नातिसु हेवम, अर्थात मानवता का कल्याण और सुख सदैव सुनिश्चित किया जाए। 2500 साल पहले भारत की भूमि ने यह संदेश पूरे विश्व को दिया था। आइए इस संदेश को याद कर इस G20 समिट का हम आरंभ करें। 21वीं सदी का यह समय पूरी दुनिया को नई दिशा दिखाने वाला और नई दिशा देने वाला एक महत्वपूर्ण समय है। ये वो समय है जब बरसों पुरानी चुनौतियां हमसे नए समाधान मांग रही हैं और इसलिए हमें ह्यूमन सेंट्रिक अप्रोच के साथ अपने हर दायित्व को निभाते हुए ही आगे बढ़ना है। फ्रेंड्स, कोविड-19 के बाद विश्व में एक बहुत बड़ा संकट विश्वास के अभाव का आया है। युद्ध ने इस ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट को और गहरा किया है। जब हम कोविड को हरा सकते हैं तो हम आपसी विश्वास पर आए इस संकट पर भी विजय प्राप्त कर सकते हैं। आज G20 के प्रेसिडेंट के तौर पर भारत पूरी दुनिया का आह्वान करता है कि हम मिलकर सबसे पहले इस ग्लोबल ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट को एक विश्वास, एक भरोसे में बदलें। यह हम सभी के साथ मिलकर चलने का समय है और इसलिए सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास, सबका प्रयास का मंत्र हम सभी के लिए एक पथ प्रदर्शक बन सकता है। वैश्विक अर्थव्यवस्था में उथल-पुथल हो, नॉर्थ और साउथ का डिवाइड हो, ईस्ट और वेस्ट की दूरी हो, फूड, फ्यूल और फर्टिलाइजर का मैनेजमेंट हो, टेररिज्म और साइबर सिक्योरिटी हो, हेल्थ, एनर्जी और वाटर सिक्योरिटी हो, वर्तमान के साथ ही आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए हमें इन चुनौतियों के ठोस समाधान की तरफ बढ़ना ही होगा। फ्रेंड्स, भारत की G20 प्रेसिडेंसी देश के भीतर और देश के बाहर इंक्लूजन का, सबका साथ का प्रतीक बन गई है। भारत में ये पीपल्स G20 बन गया। करोड़ों भारतीय इससे जुड़े। देश के 60 से ज्यादा शहरों में 200 से ज्यादा अधिक बैठकें हुई। सबका साथ की भावना से ही भारत ने प्रस्ताव रखा था कि अफ्रीकन यूनियन को G20 की स्थायी सदस्यता दी जाए। मेरा विश्वास है कि इस प्रस्ताव पर हम सबकी सहमति है। आप सबकी सहमति से आगे की कार्रवाई शुरू करने से पहले मैं अफ्रीकन यूनियन के अध्यक्ष को G20 के स्थायी सदस्य के रूप में अपना स्थान ग्रहण करने के लिए आमंत्रित करता हूं। Excellency, इसके साथ ही मैं मीडिया के साथियों से भी विनम्र आग्रह करूंगा कि वे अब हमें समय दें और इस सभागृह से बाहर जाने का कष्ट करें।
Welcome back to CNBC-TV18's mega coverage of the G20 Summit. We just heard Prime Minister Modi's opening address. He urged the world leaders to move from global trust deficit to global trust. He said the G20 bloc will have to look at concrete solutions to terrorism, climate change, supply chains and cybersecurity. Well, we'll keep getting you highlights of the major events happening at the Bharat Mandapam. But for now, let's go back to the Reserve Bank's pavilion that showcases the central bank's digital rupee and an innovation hub. Sapna Das joins us from there.
We are here at the RBI's Innovation Pavilion just ahead of the G20 Summit. On display, of course, is the Reserve Bank of India's digital currency. And, of course, we'll know more about what all RBI has done in the field of fintech and also digital innovation. We are now going to be joined in conversation by DGM RBI, Brijesh. Thank you so much for giving time to CNBC. Very quickly, please explain to us what is on display here and what does it mean for the common Indian citizen?
So in this RBI Innovation Pavilion, we are displaying central bank digital currency, that is the digital rupee, on which we are doing the pilot. And on the second section, we have public tech platform for frictionless credit, which has been recently announced, and we have also started pilot on it. And on the third section, we have a display of the payment system sites, the different type of initiatives which our payment systems has done, that is on display.
Okay. So coming quickly first to the digital rupee, basically, what is it that you can share with us at the moment?
See, here we are showcasing the live transactions. You can experience the live transactions of central bank digital currency in this innovation pavilion. So our partner banks today, Canara Bank is there. So our partners bank, they have set up the whole system where you can actually see the live transactions, how it happens. You can experience the different features of the digital app which we have for the central bank in our digital rupee. So all the features you can experience in this pavilion.
Okay. And give us a sense of as to what is the number of transactions at the moment, how many users you have been able to get in. There are pilots going on, at least as far as your wholesale and retail segments are concerned. So where are we leading on this at the moment?
So in retail segment, we have more than 15 lakh customers are there. And our merchants have around more than 3 lakh merchants have also been onboarded. But the best part is after the introduction of interoperability with the UPI and UPI, the acceptance infrastructure is now universal. So any merchant who is having UPI QR code, they can accept central bank digital currency, that is digital rupee. Okay. So it is now universally accepted.
Well, in fact, Parikshit Luthra of CNBC-TV18 also spoke to executive directors at the RBI, Vivek Deep and Ajay Chaudhary, and began by asking them about the advanced digital public infrastructure being showcased to the foreign delegates. Listen in.
As you know, there are a number of initiatives we have taken in the recent times as far as the payment system is concerned. So we had a number of options that we could showcase to the foreign delegates. They were coming here, but of those options which are available, we thought UPI, since it has made a lot of name in the foreign shores, so that we are trying to showcase, and we are in fact going one step further and trying to give a UPI experience to the foreign delegates by enabling them to have the UPI on their link to their foreign numbers, mobile numbers, and so that they can move around during this in this campus and outside also, and use that wallet to transact. Right. Apart from that, two other innovative options. One is using their wallet on a wearable device, and the other is a Bharat bill payment system experience where even NRIs sitting abroad can make payment for bills and utilities in India. Right. So that we are trying to show.
Is that the stall where international media and delegates can come?
That stall is on the other side. Okay. This will be for the CBDC and things like that.
All right, sir. Could you tell us a bit about this, Mr. Ajay Chaudhary?
Yeah. This is what Vivek has just mentioned about a payment system. Here is a digital currency. This is a legal tender for INR in rupee, and we have started the pilot actually in December 2021 for the retail, for the central bank digital currency. Here we are demonstrating how it can be used actually with the merchant and peer-to-peer transfer, as also we are trying to give similar wallet what UPI we are trying to give, just to have hands-on experience with some preloaded CBDC, and they can use it in any of the stalls here. So this is the CBDC position here.
Right. I'd just like to ask you, in terms of cooperation with international banks, cooperation on financial inclusion, what are we looking to achieve at this G20? We're showcasing our innovation here, but what can this G20 do, and what can India presidency offer to the world and other countries and developing nations?
No, multiple things actually on our platter. One is definitely we want to showcase our DPI, digital public infrastructure, and application built on that, and basically people can leverage on this, and that most of the different, particularly Global South, is very keen on that, looking at this. As also we are trying to have some narrative on private currency, what we mean, crypto, etc. So that also some consensus is arriving that possibly we can have some sort of arrangement where basically we can handle the risk relating to that. Plus, actually, how we can cooperate relating to the big tech and fintech issues across the globe. So these are the few major things actually we are looking at for the cooperation across the globe.
Yeah. Hopefully we will have some consensus on the cryptocurrency framework. The Financial Stability Board, the IMF, they've all come out with a synthesis paper.
Yeah, I mean, Ajay mentioned some of the key areas in which we can have cooperation. Yeah. One more thing that I wanted to add was the cross-border payment, because that is it's a G20 priority area, and India has shown by interlinking its fast payment system with Singapore, that is one way in which cross-border payments can be made much more efficient and smooth for the common public. And the financial world across all over the world is very enthused about this particular kind of architecture where fast payment systems of the countries can talk to each other, and international payments can move to a different architecture than what is existing today. So that is another area.
And we are also trying to take UPI to different parts of the world, trying to have collaborations with many countries. Give us a sense of the number of nations we're having a conversation with.
That question keeps on coming quite often actually. So on that, our Deputy Governor also had spoken a few days earlier. The conversation is going on with a number of countries, but and it is at different stages. It is 2 or 3 models that we are talking about. In some cases, we are talking about linking the fast payment system of the 2 countries. For example, UPI here and Pay Now in Singapore, so we have linked that. The other model is that using UPI, you can scan the QR code in some other countries. The person from India goes there, and the person coming from that country to India can use the QR code and make payment. The third option is that the UPI-like infrastructure can be built in that country. So all these three options are being mooted. The talks are at various stages with different countries, since the agreements are not yet finalized. It will possibly not be proper for me to give out the names at this stage, but whenever the agreements are finalized, we announce it on our website, and it comes in the public.
All right, sir, if we can quickly show our viewers also what's happening with frictionless credit. What are we trying to showcase?
Come here inside. This is something possibly we are looking at frictionless credit. What we are talking about the frictionless, what we mean by this, that information actually which are residing at the multiple locations. Lenders are finding it difficult and sometimes complex and costly to fetch them and provide the lending to borrowers. So many times it takes 2 to 4 weeks for providing the lending. Here actually this platform enables the seamless flow of information from all sources to lenders through plug and play model, and accordingly it can move to lenders and they can decide within a few minutes. You can't believe it, but in case of MSME, for this cattle financing and the KCC financing, the lending is done within less than 10 minutes. So this is the transformational thing. What we say, Governor has said, is a transformational thing actually for the next 1 year, and possibly it's a UPI movement for the lending.
With that, it's time for us to slip into a short break. We will continue our coverage and discussion with our special guest on the other side. Stay tuned.